Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I'm very pleased to brief you on the workshop background, scope, and expected outputs, and their agenda item 2. At the opening of the workshop, you have heard from the Secretary General that the protection of the marine environment from harmful effects which may arise from activities in the area is at the core of ISA's mandates. To this end, ISA shall adopt appropriate rules, regulations, and procedures for effective environmental management. Another key responsibility given to ISA by the United Nations Convention of the Law of the Sea under Article 143 is to promote and encourage the conduct of marine scientific research in the area, as well as to coordinate and disseminate the results of such research and analysis when available. The importance of these pillars, as well as the commitment to contribute to the achievement of goals and targets of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, in particular Sustainable Development Goal 14, is reflected in ISA's strategic plan and high-level action plan for the period of 2019 to 2023. In this context, the contribution to the United Nations Decade of Ocean Sciences has been formalized with the adoption of the ISA Marine Scientific Research Action Plan in support of the UN Decade by the members of the ISA Assembly in December 2020. This action plan identifies 6 strategic research priorities, of which the strategic research priority number 2 is particularly relevant to this workshop, focusing on standardization and innovation of methodologies for deep-sea biodiversity assessment, including taxonomic identifications and descriptions in the area. The scientific knowledge basis, including on deep-sea taxonomy and biodiversity, is critical for the development of effective regulatory framework, supported by robust regional environmental assessments and management plans, monitoring programs and methodologies, as well as environmental impact and risk assessments. During the exploration activities, ISA contractors are required to undertake comprehensive environmental baseline studies to characterize the baseline conditions of the marine environments that are likely to be impacted by exploration and possible test mining or testing of mining component activities. These studies include a vast list of oceanographic, geological, and biological scientific observations, from the sea floor through the water column to the ocean surface. The study of biological communities living on the seafloor, within the sediment and on top of sediments or attached to various hard surfaces, such as the surfaces of nodules, sulfide deposits, or crusts, need to be characterized. The pelagic communities found near the seafloor and across various depths of the water column, which may be impacted by the operations, should also be assessed. The recommendations developed by the Legal and Technical Commission, described in document ISBA 25 LTC 6 Rev 1, also contain an explanatory commentary providing details on the best available technologies for collecting and analyzing the sediment and water samples, accounting for the different sizes of organisms and their spatial distributions. The scientific data and results generated by these studies, as well as the advances made on resource assessments and technological developments, are then reported on an annual basis for review by the Secretariat and the Legal and Technical Commission. For submission of digital data, contractors use standardized reporting templates for metadata, geological and environmental data, and also submit raw data files, images, videos, and other documents, such as cruise reports. All this information is compiled in ISA Deep Data database and environmental data, including the taxonomic information, is made available to the scientific community and the general public. Since its launching in 2019, Deep data has been continuously updated with the information generated during almost 40 years of continuous scientific activities undertaken by pioneer investors and contractors from the exploration of deep-sea minerals, both before and after the entry into force of the United Nations Convention of the Law of the Sea. Since the adoption of the regulations for exploration of polymetallic nodules in 2001, more than 100 cruises were conducted in the abyssal plains in the Pacific and Indian Oceans. The exploration of polymetallic sulfides in the North Atlantic and Indian mid-ocean reaches started later in 2012, and over 30 cruises have already taken place in these areas. 22 cruises were dedicated to the exploration for cobalt-rich ferromanganese crusts in seamount provinces of the Northwest Pacific and South Atlantic since 2014. In the past years, ISA has undertaken various activities to address standardization of methods and analysis for biodiversity assessments, including technical studies for describing sampling and processing protocols, series of intercalibration workshops dedicated to standardizing taxonomic identifications across contractor surveys, and more recently, the Biodiversity Synthesis Workshop, which was part of the review of the implementation of Regional Environmental Management Plan for the Clarion-Clipperton Zone. Building on results from these activities, in September 2020, the ISA hosted the first virtual workshop on taxonomic standardization with a specific aim to discuss strategic collaborative approaches to advance deep-sea taxonomic knowledge. Last year's workshop identified several activities and priorities in relation to the exchange of taxonomic data and information, approaches for quality assurance and quality control, further needs for research on sampling methodologies and analysis, as well as initiatives that can be developed for capacity building and awareness raising. These activities are being compiled in a draft roadmap that will be presented later in this workshop to facilitate the effective integration of deep-sea taxonomic information for the protection of marine environment and biodiversity in the area. Addressing requirements of taxonomic identifications based on image data and the need to establish reference image libraries was highlighted across the various discussion groups on different size classes of biological communities, excluding the microbial communities. In this context, the next 2 days of this workshop will be dedicated to identifying technical means and key elements for a standardized model necessary to facilitate effective sharing and use of image data within the context of ISA, with a view to enhancing deep-sea species identification and quantification, as well as increasing capacity and literacy in deep-sea taxonomy. The workshop deliberations will be focused on various steps of image data workflow, from acquisition to archival and exchange, processing and annotations, and the creation of image data products for multiple users. This workshop is expected to support members, contractors, and other relevant stakeholders of ISA in exploring opportunities to collaborate on innovating methods and tools for image-based deep-sea species identifications, effectively sharing images and image-based assessments, and promoting capacity building efforts in the field of deep-sea taxonomy. The outcomes of this workshop will directly contribute to the implementation of ISA's mandates and strategic priorities, and to the objectives of the United Nations Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development, as set out in ISA's Action Plan on Marine Scientific Research. As indicated in the workshop agenda, Item 3 will consist of a theme presentation by the workshop chair to set the scene and highlight key points for focused discussion. During the following panel discussions under agenda items 4 to 7, panelists will introduce the topics for plenary discussion. And for participation in the plenary discussions, participants are invited to use the chat function as explained by the Secretariat. I look forward to very fruitful discussions as well as opportunities for future collaborations. Thank you very much for your interest and support to this workshop.